Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on KTN Newsdesk. My name is Betty Kialo. A section of residents of Manda village in Mombasa have reignited the storm over compensation schemes for land lying along the standard gauge railway. Well, they are accusing the state of leading a skewed process, many of them arguing that they have not been properly compensated. KTN's news reporter Francis Ontomwa has been following the story and now files a report on the lamentations of Maganda.
This
man will hear none of the explanations by land officials as the word of checks went on for those displaced by the planned construction of the standard gauge railway. And just to package right their dissatisfaction, these men and women gathered here to deliberate the whole exercise, some feeling shortchanged, somewhat rejuvenating the vexing land question in the ambitious project.
Sehemu hii tumeonewa kabisa, kusema ule ukweli. Tumeonewa. Hata mheshimiwa Joho mwenyewe alisema ya kwamba hapa mahali panastahili watu walipwe haki yao, lakini watu wamekataa kutulipa haki yetu kwa sababu hii si haki kabisa. Hii ni town center. Ni port area. Port si iko pale.
It's the same story for Ramadan Saidi. He has been awarded slightly above 1 million shillings for this structure, but he says it's a far cry from what he expected. He invested much more, he says, and nothing will convince him to give away his home.
Nyumba kulingana vile iko, mimi mwenyewe nimetumia karibu tuseme kama 7.5. Alafu nalipa 1 million. Sasa kwenda kupata plot mahali ni 1 million. 1 million nikinunua plot nitajenga na nini? At least ningepewa 2.5, 2.3. Ningejua naondoka sina wasiwasi. Na niko na familia.
Reports by land officials indicate that already over 70% of residents have approved their awards, but even those lamenting keep holding their awards close to them, hoping a fresh valuation process will be initiated to reward them.
Nyumba nimelipwa, si ndio? Ploti bado, si ndio? Na saa hii ploti tunaambiwa tutabomolewa, si ndio? Watakuja wapitishe reli. Serikali itakuja ipitishe reli. Ni wapi tutarudi tena kulipwa? Ni nani atarudi tena kutulipa hiyo ardhi? Sababu tutakuwa tushaondolewa.
Land officials point to a misunderstanding by the residents, sticking to the fact that the first phase of the project was only covering the structures, with another one scheduled to address the physical land.
Actually, what we've been having a renegotiation on is on the political front, where people had not understood and the leadership was coming in. Otherwise, the people who've been undertaking this valuation exercise are professional valuers with over 15 years experience. So the awards were not even reviewed. It was just explaining to the people on what the awards are comprised therein.
But as even Maganda village raises the storm from the opposite direction, it appears nothing will stop the rails from moving. The ambitious standard gauge railway process appears to be screeching hard here at Maganda village, and it has everything to do with land valuation. Although residents are raising sharp concerns, the government on the other hand is standing firm that the procedure followed due process. Francis Ontomwa, KTN News, Mombasa.
Meanwhile, 2 rehabilitation centers will be set up in Nyeri to help alcohol addicts in the recovery process. The effort is a joint one between the Nyeri County Government and National Authority for Campaign Against Drugs, through which 6 million shillings will be used to refurbish the centers. Where there was also an interesting moment when 2 men who had hidden second-generation brews for sale owned up to their folly and declared that they too would join in the fight against drug abuse.
In broad daylight, as residents of Nyeri went about their activities, this man lay in the middle of the road in a seemingly inebriated state. In a stupor, oblivious of the happenings around him, even as his fellow mechanics tried to get him off the road. This, even as stakeholders step up the fight against alcoholism in a directive initiated by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Central Kenya has been most affected by the menace that has seen productive youth ensnared in alcoholism. In an interesting twist in the ongoing crackdown, 2 men surrendered cartons of second-hand generation alcohol that amounted to 260 liters. The 2 men had hidden the stock but decided to come clean and join in the fight against illicit brew and second-generation alcohol.
Tukatoa amnesty. Tukasema yule ambaye ameficha hizi pombe ajitolee, alete hiyo pombe ili tuweze kuiharibu ama kuimwaga. Na nashukuru kwa sababu wameanza kujitokeza.
Tutu Sub-County Deputy Commissioner Herman Shambi called on women to help their men recover from alcohol addiction.
Nyumbani atakuwa poa. Hata tumefurahia.
Pombe inakunywa hapa. Sasa ni maziwa na soup na afya labda imeanza kurudi. Tumeanza kugravitate towards good health. Yeah.
2 health centers in Nyeri will be refurbished and converted to rehabilitation centers to help recovering alcoholics. The 2 rehabilitation centers that will be stationed at Karia and Gaduthi areas will be refurbished at a cost of 6 million shillings provided by Nakada to the Nyeri County government.
The exercise is still continuing and we are not going to relent. At the same time as we plan these activities, to get to the gatekeepers of our culture, the Kikuyu Elders Council, for example. We want to work with the churches and so on.
And even as residents say that the crackdown on alcoholism should go beyond the stipulated time, they said that it is necessary for a support system to be created, especially for those who had already become addicted, as they cannot stop imbibing in a day, and therefore the newly refurbished rehabilitation centers here in Nyeri County will come in handy. Carol Nderi, KTN, Nyeri County.
U.S. President Barack Obama says his visit in Kenya will focus on encouraging democracy and reducing corruption, while he spoke at a White House press briefing on Wednesday.
With respect to the visit to Kenya, it's obviously something I'm looking forward to. I'll be honest with you. Visiting Kenya as a private citizen is probably more meaningful to me than visiting as president, because I can actually get outside of a hotel room or a conference center. And just the logistics of visiting a place are always tough as president. But it's obviously symbolically important. And my hope is that we can deliver a message that the U.S. is a strong partner, not just for Kenya, but for sub-Saharan Africa generally, build on the progress that's been made around issues of health and education, focus on counterterrorism issues that are important in East Africa because of Al-Shabaab and some of the tragedies that have happened inside of Kenya, and continue to encourage democracy and the reduction of corruption inside that country that sometimes has held back this incredibly gifted and blessed country.
It is an emotional joint funeral service that is being held in Nyeri for the 12 victims of the Mandera attack. KTN's Carol Nyeri is attending this ceremony, and she now joins us for an update.
Preparations for the funeral service for the 11 victims of the Mandera massacre that occurred last week are in top gear here at the Chaka Stadium in Kieni constituency of Nyeri County. They are pitching up their tents ready for the service, where the mourners will be joined by leaders, not just local leaders, but leaders from other parts of the country, in giving a befitting send-off to the victims of the Al-Shabaab attack that occurred early Tuesday last week. This region in particular has lost quite a number of young men. Over 20 men have lost their lives, especially in Mandera, where they'd gone to seek quarry jobs. And while their families, their loved ones, expected them to come back home because they had gone to find some jobs to find a way of sustaining themselves economically and taking care of their families, instead they've come back in caskets, and of course that creates a very somber mood here in Kieni. And they hope then that the youth, the ones that are remaining, will be able to find means and ways to sustain themselves economically, to find jobs so that they can take care of themselves and their families. Now, some of the survivors are nursing serious gunshot wounds and might not be able to exert themselves themselves in hard labor as they were used to before, given that most of them were used to doing hard labor in the quarries. And they said they would appreciate any assistance from the government in setting themselves up, in giving themselves or having help in setting up something economically that they will be able to do now that they might not be able to carry on with the quarrying work.
Hiyo mambo ikiisha, tukizika watu, hiyo mambo naisha. Lakini kwa wakati huu ningeomba viongozi wale tuko naye, kutoka governor, senator, MPs wale tuko naye, isiwe ni mambo tu ya kuzungumza wakati tuna mizimba ama wakati tuna mzimba.
The Nyeri County government had promised to find alternative avenues for the youth, mostly from Keni constituency. This is a semi-arid area and agriculture is almost not sustainable, therefore leading to almost 90% of the youth finding jobs in the quarry sector, in the stone sector as they call it. So the county government, in collaboration with the central government, had promised to find alternative avenues. And while some of the residents said that is a welcome move, they said that the government needs to walk the talk, as they have been promising to find avenues for the youth, but are taking some time to do so, so they will appreciate, remembering that most of them had left Chaka to go to Mandera, where the pay is better. The same work that they do in Chaka quarries, for the same work they get more money in Mandera. Reporting from Nyeri, my name is Carol Nyeri, and we will continue giving you the updates on what is happening regarding the funeral service of the 11 victims of the Mandera massacre that occurred last week.
Thank you very much, Carol Nyeri, for that detailed report. Now, the reports yesterday that 19 boys have been suspended from a school in Western Kenya over homosexuality claims sent shockwaves across the country. And now the boys are alleged to have written a letter intended for Barack Obama through the embassy in the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi. The boys are reported to be seeking scholarships to study in the U.S. KTN's reporter in Bugomba, Robert Wanyonyi, now joins us live for an update on this developing story. Robert, thank you very much for joining us on KTN Newsdesk. Tell us more about this letter.
Good evening.
Right, we're not able to hear clearly what Robert is telling us. His report, of course, on the Kibabi homosexuality claims. We understand that the boys who were suspended yesterday have sent a letter to the U.S. Embassy seeking to have scholarships to study in the U.S. We'll try and get Wanyonyi a little bit later to see if he has any more details in regard to that developing story. But moving on, a 12-year-old paralyzed girl from Bukura, Kakamega, we will call Omulema, was defiled by a neighbor well known to her because she is paralyzed waist down. Well, she has no recollection of the pain of the ordeal. Her grandmother and guardian wants justice for her, but that is not her only concern.
Omulema is a Luya word that loosely translates to the one who cannot walk, and such is the fate of this 12-year-old girl who lives in this humble hut in a Seshendo village in Bukura. Her grandmother tells us that 2 months after her birth, she had too much fluid in her head and a subsequent growth in her back. She would never walk, something that made her father leave her and her mother. She also lives here with a younger sister who has to be picked from school. But a neighbor, Omulema says, one well known to her as Vini, would allegedly take advantage of her when she was left alone. The minor recounts how she screamed, and he in turn threatened to kill her if she dared to tell anyone. Because of her paralysis, she could not feel the pain waist down. Her grandmother found traces of blood in her clothes, and that's when she knew something was wrong. A medical report done much later would confirm that she had been defiled.
Akapitia huku nyuma ya dirisha, akaanza kuvuruta gunia, akakuja hivi, akaingia kwa nyumba, akaanza kunilalia.
Sasa kujua hivyo, ndio nikaenda nyumbani kwao nikatamfuta, sikumpata. Sasa vile nilimpata, tukakuja hapa naye na watu wawili, kaanza kumuuliza, akakataa, nikasema na sasa mimi napeleka mtoto daktari. Sasa akaweka makoti chini, akaniambia munisemee. Chifu akaniambia hii maneno inamshinda niende wapi? Niende polisi.
Chisendo village in Bukura is a small hamlet. Looking at the houses, you'd expect a close-knit communal responsibility. But this is the disturbing strand in this narrative, that after the incident, the neighbors told her that she made a mistake in reporting this matter to the police and to the chief, that they wanted to deal with it themselves, while it's almost a month and no justice has been served. The accused, according to the administration, is a well-known offender. He is still at large. Police say they are pursuing him, but the local community is allegedly shielding him from justice. A lead suggests that he is in Kitale. The assistant chief says Nyumba Kumi will work here, but for the victim, it hasn't.
He'll be found because this is his homeland. He cannot go anywhere. He's yet to, even is yet to get an ID. So he must come back.
Is it somebody you know?
I know him.
And people speak in hushed tones about another incident in Imulolo village not too far away. It begs the question, how many more have gone unreported? There are vulnerable children who walk, oblivious of the predators within. Justice for Umlema could reverse a tide. If before her there were many, after her there may be none. Dorcas Wangira, KTN News, Bukura, Kakamega.
Quite an unfortunate incident. We hope that justice will prevail. We now take a short commercial break. KTN Newsdesk is going to be coming up shortly with, of course, business and sports. Stay tuned. Welcome back to KTN Newsdesk. While Ugandan police allowed opposition presidential hopefuls to hold their public rallies this week, and Kiza Besigye is well into his second political rally, as we are informed by a reporter on our Ugandan partner station, NBS.
We are happy to be where we are.
The order is clear that we shall stay in parliament.
What next for the rebel MPs? That appears the question many are asking after the controversial U-turn of their leader and Remiaga County MP Theodore Sechikubo to back President Museveni for the presidency in 2016. This was during national celebrations for the World Population Day held in Zimbabwe. Dora East MP Wilfred Niwagaba, who was unceremoniously expelled from the ruling party alongside Sechikubo, told NBS they are not bothered by Sechikubo's latest political antics.
As far as I am concerned, we've not agreed as colleagues to back a particular candidate. We are still in our former position that yes, we must change the leadership of NRM and the leadership of the country. That has been our position.
Niwagaba remains defiant and will not bow to pressure from the party's electoral commission that stopped them from picking nomination forms till they are cleared by the party's top hierarchy.
Beyond 31st, then the rebel MPs have to account for their bad manners of having been rebels.
We are not bothered about the timelines of the NRM process.
Niwagaba and Sechikubo alongside Buyaga West MP Barnabas Tinkasimire and Kampala Central's Mohammed Nsereko were expelled from the ruling party over going against official party positions.
From Uganda to South Africa, where the retired Archbishop Desmond Tutu has been admitted to a Cape Town hospital with a persistent infection. Last December, the anti-apartheid icon cancelled plans to travel to a meeting of Nobel laureates in Rome as he was battling prostate cancer. He was also hospitalized in 2011 for minor surgery and again in 2013. Tutu, who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984 for campaigning against apartheid, renewed his wedding vows with Leah earlier this month after 60 years of marriage. He danced stiffly as choristers sang and was frequently on his feet thanking the congregants at the end of the 3-hour event. And that's where we wrap up things here on KTN Newsdesk. My name is Betty Kello. Remember, you can change to KTN News if you're watching. If you're on KTN News, you can get it on DSTV channel 274, Zuku channel 14, or GoTV channel 94 to continue with other stories making headlines. My name is Betty Kello. See you tomorrow.